Turn it over to you.
All right. All right. All right. Welcome, everybody. We cut straight to the point because it's recorded. So if you missed the beginning of it, it's okay because you can go back and watch it from the beginning over and over again. So let's just get right to it. Time is of the essence. I've got a book in my hand here, often talked about, probably not read as much as it's talked about, called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. A lot of people read books, they pick them up, and they don't get to the end. At the end of this book, the second to the last chapter is called The Sixth Sense. As we're in here because of LEV AI, and there's three of us here right now, I'm checking to make sure if somebody were to show up right now with questions about LEV AI, I would stop what I'm doing, deal with them. That's what this is designed for. But in the meanwhile, this definitely relates to LEV AI because the sixth sense, Napoleon Hill talks about the 13th principle as the sixth sense, is known as the sixth sense, through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy, this Think and Grow Rich philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles. But thank goodness for this awesome intelligence, AI. The sixth sense is that portion of the subconscious mind which has been referred to as the creative imagination. Let me stop and say this. All these minds are creatively imagining right now. The chapter before the sixth sense in this book talks about the brain, which human beings have. Not talking about giraffes that have a brain and whales and this kind of thing. Us humans are on a different kind of level. They call us gods, children of the Most High. The one that knows the most is the God, right? But let's go back to this. It has been referred to as the receiving set, this creative imagination, this sixth sense. The receiving set, quote unquote, through which ideas, plans, and thoughts flash into the mind. The flashes are sometimes called hunches or inspirations. The sixth sense defies description, even though we're describing it. It cannot be described to a person who has not mastered the other principles of this philosophy, because such a person has no knowledge, no experience with which the sixth sense may be compared. Understanding the sixth sense comes only by meditation through mind development from within. After you have mastered the principles described in this book, you'll be prepared to accept as truth a statement which may otherwise be incredible to you. Namely, through the aid of the sixth sense, you will be warned of impending dangers in time to avoid them, and notified of opportunities in time to embrace them. There comes to your aid and to your bidding, and due to your bidding, I'm sorry, there comes to your aid and to do your bidding with the development of the sixth sense, a guardian angel. How cool is that? Who will open to you at all times the door to the temple of wisdom. Miracles of the sixth sense. The author is not a believer in nor an advocate of miracles, for the reason that he has enough knowledge of nature to understand that nature never deviates from her established laws. Some of her laws are so incomprehensible that they produce what appear to be miracles. The sixth sense comes as near to being a miracle as anything I have ever experienced. I'll read them a little bit more in just a second, but as we delve into this awesome intelligence AI time, just listening to a presentation by this Alicia. She calls herself the queen of AI. I can't refute that. I can't say she's not, but she's definitely provided a lot of great information. She talked about Gamma.app, phenomenal. Creating a PowerPoint slide presentation. But what I wanted to hone in on is this concept that I was taking notes about, dealing with learn what is important for people to learn about AI. Let's say that again. This is something that I wrote down as she was talking and some other speakers were talking. Learn what is important for people to learn about AI. Because one thing she mentioned is that consultants are making $8,500 an hour in this AI space. Awesome intelligence. What makes awesome intelligence so unique is each individual's person's spirit and heart is very, very, very crucial moving forward. She was talking about data-backed ranking of 10 fastest growing skills. She talked about skills on the rise in consulting. And guess what? AI literacy was right there at the top. The number one job on the rise is an AI engineer. Number two is a consultant, an AI consultant. Number two job on the rise. Number 10 is an AI researcher. That's great for Andrew because he's a junior researcher. Soon to be a senior researcher, I'm sure. Large language models, number 10. Public speaking is number 6. AI literacy. Again, implement AI tools into other people's businesses. Yes. So these skills, easily 150 an hour, 350 an hour, easily, just for a little bit of time. Yeah, how to teach an audience. Great, great questions to ask ChatGPT. She asked the question of, it's just phenomenal. Teaching your ChatGPT how to think the way you want it to. It's a good one. Teaching business how to use Gamma.app AI to create PowerPoint. How to create a PowerPoint presentation. Phenomenal. She created a PowerPoint presentation in probably about 35 seconds, 10 slides. Literally created every bit of it, 3D. And apparently, if you go to Gamma.app, which I've never done, which I plan to do, and you can do now as well, you can learn that probably, I don't know, in 30 minutes or so on your own. She just ran through it, literally, just showed on the screen and did it. And it kicked out, and everybody could see the final product literally in 37 seconds. But she charged, I think, $3,500 to do that for a company, and there are 42 employees who their job is to do presentations for the company. She charged them that money to do that. And I think it took 45 minutes to just kind of be nice and go over different things and but the meat of it was 35, 40 seconds at the most of the doing this. That she knew what to push to make the Gamma.app produce that. And that's valuable to the point of her getting 3,500, pretty soon up to 8,500 in the market. Soon probably be 10,000 because the dollar bills are losing their purchasing power every day, every second. So pretty soon you'll need $20,000 for that same service, undoubtedly. Yeah. So back to this sixth sense. I just want to read this real quick. Where was I? Yeah, this much the author does know, that there is a power or a first cause or an intelligence. People in my circle call it Allah, call it the supreme being. But he writes, there's a power or a first cause or an intelligence which permeates every atom of matter and embraces every unit of energy perceptible to man. That this infinite intelligence converts acorns into oak trees intelligently, I'll just add in, causes water to flow downhill in response to the law of gravity, follows night with day and winter with summer, each maintaining its proper place in relationship to the other. This intelligence may, through the principles of this philosophy, be induced to aid in transmuting desires into concrete or material form. The author has this knowledge because he has experimented with it and has experienced it. Let me keep on bringing it back to LEV AI and where we are with this awesome intelligence, because if people don't catch up quick, this is why we're so valuable. If they don't catch up quick, it's going to be almost probably daunting in a certain sense. But in another sense, the babies that'll be born, they'll just pick up right where the masters are and run from there. So there's that. Us older folks, you want to keep it?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's all
I don't
good.
know what happened there.
It's all good. Hey, maybe they thought we needed chunks of it. So now we got two for the price of one. Got that first half, and now we're getting into this part about the need for LEV AI. And by the way, we're going to do a training as we've just launched LEV AI. Training was announced that it's going to start at 4 p.m. Eastern, which is obviously 1 o'clock Pacific, which is coming up soon. First of its kind, because now we're training on the back office. That's going to be a training from Randy on that. So just keep that in mind as we're creating this space, and people that are tapped in with Andrew Networks, myself, and they've been hearing us talk about this for the last week. They realize we have a training, and so it'll be valuable for them to hear this, because this is an everyday update situation. It may go on forever. I don't know. But right now it's needed, because people that are coming in, they can get what they can get from the website, but the fine-tuned understanding of the back office, what's going on, walking people into existence with this. Because a week from now, the company announced yesterday, in addition to what it did yesterday with Canada and the US launching now, we can go in there, people can pay their money. Shout out to Andrew, myself, we did that. But now the rest of the world, to whatever degree, 98% of the world, he mentioned those countries that aren't in the middle of war and dodging bullets and all that, and just have a certain infrastructure technology in place, which he was saying is about 95% of the world, will be able to access LEV AI. That's a beautiful thing where we are, because the world is gravitating. We don't have to create the need, the demand for people to want to learn about what I was just saying and the consulting, and they're going to keep trying to get that. Here's my question. What's going to separate billions of people to be in that category? She said there's 3,500 current, 350,000, I'm sorry, consultants like her. She's saying that there's an understanding that the demand is going to grow to 4.7 million of those consultants needed. Seems like a big number, and it is, relatively speaking. However, compared to 5 billion, that's a very small number. 4.7 million people needed to help put these systems in place for businesses, consult. So my question becomes, with all these millions competing to be in that spot, because that spot is making $8,500 an hour. So the question becomes, why would I hire you? That's back to awesome intelligence now. If you knew what I know about Andrew, you'd hire him in a heartbeat. If you knew what I know about me, you'd hire me in a heartbeat. If you were heading another country, $1 million easily. Easy. Monthly. More than that, but I'm just lowballing it. If you were a governor, you'd hire me, you'd hire Andrew in a heartbeat, whatever state you're in. Because the awesome intelligence part has everything to do with the heart, has everything to do with an understanding of best practices and a lot of variables that will become increasingly important, because the universe has a way to weed out those that aren't in the right mindset for 2025 and beyond. Let me get back to this 6 cents real quick. And I even talked about the mayors. Yeah, $10,000 mayor, please. For that initial little hour consultation, that's a bargain. But you'll benefit tremendously. Karen Bass, for example. you would be, if you only knew. But I'm sure you'll gravitate to get that soon. It says here, step by step through the preceding chapters, you have been led to this, the last principle. If you have mastered each of the preceding principles, you are now prepared to accept, without being skeptical, the stupendous claims that are made here. If you have not mastered the other principles, you must do so before you may determine definitely whether or not the claims made in this chapter are fact or fiction. While I was passing through the age of hero worship in his own journey, apparently, I found myself trying to imitate those whom I most admired. Moreover, I discovered that the element of faith with which I endeavored to imitate my idols gave the great capacity to do so quite successfully. It says, let great men shape your life. I have never entirely divested myself of this habit of hero worship. My experience has taught me that the next best thing to being truly great is to emulate the great by feeling and action as nearly as possible. That's huge. Long before I had ever written a line for publication or endeavored to deliver a speech in public, I followed the habit of reshaping my own character by trying to imitate the 9 men whose lives and life works had been most impressive to me. In his case, he writes, these 9 men were Emerson, Paine, Edison, Darwin, Lincoln, Burbank, Napoleon, Ford, and Carnegie. Download the best of all those minds in your head and see what you come up with. That might be something that you guys go out there and do it before I do. Ask ChatGPT to put the best of all those minds together and develop a game plan. Thank God for Napoleon Hill. Every night over a long period of years, this is before he had AI at his disposal, but by the way, over a long period of years, I held an imaginary council meeting with this group whom I called my invisible counselors. Y'all, I hope y'all understand where this is going. This procedure was this. Just before going to sleep at night, I would shut my eyes and see, in my imagination, this group of men seated with me around my council table. Here I had not only an opportunity to sit among those whom I considered to be great, but I actually dominated the group by serving as the chairman. Nice. I had a very definite purpose in indulging my imagination through these nightly meetings. My purpose was to rebuild my own character so it would represent a composite of the characters of my imaginary counselors. Realizing as I did early in life that I had to overcome the handicap of birth in an environment of ignorance and superstition, I deliberately assigned myself the task of voluntary rebirth through the method I have described above. Building character through autosuggestion. I knew, of course, that all men have become what they are because of their dominating thoughts and desires. I knew that every deeply seated desire has the effect of causing one to seek outward expression through which that desire may be transmuted into reality. I knew that self-suggestion is a powerful factor in building character, that it is, in fact, the sole principle through which character is built. With this knowledge of the principles of mind operation, I was fairly well armed with the equipment needed in rebuilding my character. In these imaginary council meetings, I called on my cabinet members for the knowledge I wished each to contribute, addressing myself to each member in audible words as follows. Mr. Emerson, I desire to acquire from you the marvelous understanding of nature which distinguished your life. I ask that you make an impress upon my subconscious mind of whatever qualities you possessed, which enabled you to understand and adapt yourself to the laws of nature. Mr. Burbank, I request that you pass on to me the knowledge which enabled you to so harmonize the laws of nature that you caused the cactus to shed its thorns and become an edible food. Give me access to the knowledge which enabled you to make 2 blades of grass grow where but one grew before. Napoleon, I desire to acquire from you by emulation the marvelous ability you possessed to inspire men and to arouse them to greater and more determined spirit of action. Also, to acquire the spirit of enduring faith, which enabled you to turn defeat into victory and to surmount staggering obstacles. Mr. Paine, I desire to acquire from you the freedom of thought and the courage and the clarity with which to express convictions which so distinguished you. Mr. Darwin, I wish to acquire from you the marvelous patience and ability to study cause and effect without bias or prejudice, so exemplified by you in the field of natural science. Mr. Lincoln, I desire to build into my own character the keen sense of justice, the untiring spirit of patience, the sense of humor, the human understanding, and the tolerance which were your distinguishing characteristics. Mr. Carnegie, I wish to acquire a thorough understanding of the principles of organized effort, which you use so effectively in the building of a great industrial enterprise. Mr. Ford, I wish to acquire your spirit of persistence, the determination, the poise, and the self-confidence which have enabled you to master poverty and to organize, unify, and simplify human effort so I may help others to follow in your footsteps. Mr. Edison, I wish to acquire from you the marvelous spirit of faith with which you have uncovered so many of nature's secrets, the spirit of unremitting toil with which you have so often wrested victory from death. The startling power of imagination. My method of addressing the members of the imaginary cabinet would vary according to the traits of character which I was, for the moment, most interested in acquiring. I studied the records of their lives with painstaking care, which, by the way, that painstaking care is not required anymore with this AI. But by the way, anyway, I studied the records of their lives with painstaking care. After some months of this nightly procedure, I was astounded by the discovery that these imaginary figures became apparently real. Each of these 9 men developed individual characteristics which surprised me. For example, Lincoln developed the habit of always being late, then walking around in some solemn parade. He always wore an expression of seriousness upon his face. Rarely did I see him smile. This was not true of the others. Burbank and Payne often indulged in witty repartee, which seemed at times to shock the other members of the cabinet. On one occasion, Burbank was late. When he came, he was excited with enthusiasm and explained that he had been late because of an experiment he was making through which he hoped to be able to grow apples on any sort of tree. Payne chided him by reminding him that it was an apple which started all the trouble between man and woman. Darwin chuckled heartily as he suggested that Payne should watch out for little serpents when he went into the forest to gather apples, as they had the habit of growing into big snakes. Emerson observed, "No serpents, no apples." And Napoleon remarked, "No apples, no state." These meetings became so realistic that I became fearful of their consequences and discontinued them for several months. The experiences were so uncanny, I was afraid if I continued, then I would lose sight of the fact that the meetings were purely experiences of my imagination. This is the first time I have had the courage to mention this. Heretofore, I have remained quiet on the subject because I knew from my own attitude in connection with such matters that I would be misunderstood if I described my unusual experience. I'm going to pause right there. People talk about AI these days that it's kind of biased. Napoleon Hill just described it right there. He said, "The experience was so uncanny, I was afraid if I continued them, I would lose sight of the fact that the meetings were purely experiences of my imagination." He went on to say, "This is the first time I have had the courage to mention this." We're talking about the power of this mind, is really what and the power to create whatever. He says, "Hence, heretofore, I have remained quiet on the subject because I knew from my own attitude in connection with such matters." He's explaining his attitude towards these matters affected these matters. We're talking about awesome intelligence right now. The thoughts that you put into the prompt questions affect the answers you get out. That I would be misunderstood if I described my unusual experience. And obviously, it must have been dangerous to be misunderstood at that time or now. I have been emboldened now to reduce my experience to the printed page because I am now less concerned about what they say than I was in the years that have passed. That's an important note of history. If you knew too much too soon, it wasn't a good look. But we're in a time now where the information is flowing everywhere. Those that can package it, put it together, and present it, they're going to be in demand, beyond a shadow of a doubt. And they're still going to be here as a result. continuing these thoughts. Lest I be misunderstood, I wish here to state most emphatically that I still regard my cabinet meetings as being purely imaginary. But I feel entitled to suggest that while the members of my cabinet may be purely fictional and the meeting's existence only in my own imagination, they have led me into glorious paths of adventure, rekindled an appreciation of true greatness, encouraged creative endeavor, and emboldened the expression of honest thought. What he just described to me is where we are in 2025. Music matters. The smell of certain foods being cooked matters. In coloring our imagination, in coloring our thoughts, in coloring the intention. So it's probably a great practice to just have AI say, create an environment where my thoughts can really just flow a certain way, almost like a prayer, if you will, to the universe, to the ethers, to the infinite intelligence, to the supreme, to say, put my spirit in the right place before I even open my mouth, before I get in front of anybody. Make sure it's in alignment with best practices. Tapping the source of inspiration. Then I want to hear what Andrew has to say before I read the next page, and I'll be done with this little section on the sixth sense in this book. Every word I've read, without, in addition, I put my own little thoughts interjected every now and then. It's coming from this. That's been in print since 19. That's why a lot of my mentors all have this book and they go over it year after year after year for decades that I've known about it.
37.
1937?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm talking about. I love it. Teamwork. Tapping the source of inspiration. Here we go. Somewhere in the cell structure of the brain is located an organ which receives vibrations of thought, ordinarily called hunches. So far, science has not discovered where the organ of the sixth sense is located. But this is not important. The fact remains that human beings do receive accurate knowledge through sources other than the physical senses. Such knowledge generally is received when the mind is under the influence of extraordinary stimulation. Any emergency which arouses the emotions and causes the heart to beat more rapidly than normal may, and generally does, bring the sixth sense into action. Anyone who has experienced a near accident while driving knows that on such occasions the sixth sense often comes to one's rescue and aids by split seconds in avoiding the accident. These facts are mentioned preliminarily to a statement of fact which I shall now make, namely, that during my meetings with the invisible counselors, quote unquote, I find my mind most receptive to ideas, thoughts, and knowledge which reached me through the sixth sense. On scores of occasions, when I have faced emergencies, some of them so grave that my life was in jeopardy, I have been miraculously guided past these difficulties through the influence of my invisible counselors. My original purpose in conducting council meetings with imaginary beings was solely that of impressing my own subconscious mind through the principle of autosuggestion with certain characteristics which I desired to acquire. In more recent years, my experimentation has taken on an entirely different trend. I now go to my imaginary counselors with every difficult problem, which comforts me and my clients. I'm sorry, which confronts, totally different word than comfort. Read that sentence again. I now go to my imaginary counselors with every difficult problem which confronts me and my clients. The results are often astonishing, although I do not depend entirely on this form of counsel. This last section, I'm going to read it. Well, let me make my word bond. Andrew, any thoughts before I read about a mighty force of slow growth, which is the last four paragraphs on the subject of the sixth sense? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just one comment, and I'm going to briefly share my screen and turn it back to you.
Sure.
The reason why I knew that it was 1937 is because I was reading it last night.
That doesn't surprise me at all. I love it. Let me read the rest of this, and then we'll get back into our dialogue, and we'll go to see if we can talk about and helping whoever listens to this later, specifically around LEV AI. A mighty force of slow growth. The sixth sense is not something that one can take off and put on at will. Ability to use this great power comes slowly through application of the other principles outlined in this book. No matter who you are or what may have been your purpose in reading this book, you can profit by it without understanding the principle described in this chapter. This is especially true if your major purpose is that of accumulation of money or other material things. The chapter on the sixth sense was included because the book is designed for the purpose of presenting a complete philosophy by which individuals may unerringly guide themselves in attaining whatever they ask of life. The starting point of all achievement is desire. Desire. I'll just throw my own side note in there. If somebody's not excited and desirable of anything, it doesn't matter what the hell you tell them. The starting point, he just said, of all achievement is desire. The starting point of all achievement is desire. The finishing point is that brand of knowledge which leads to understanding of self, understanding of others, understanding of the laws of nature, recognition, and understanding of happiness. I'm going to go back to this very key point about the starting point of all achievement is desire. If somebody's not desirous of what I want them to be desirous of, it doesn't matter. I can beat myself up and say, if it kills me, I'm going to help this person, but it might kill me before it helps that person. Because if they don't want it, they have their own brain, their own mind, their own intention. If it's not in alignment with what I'm talking about, trust me when I tell you, I can bear witness to what he said, that the starting point is, do they even desire that? I don't care if it's homelessness, or if they don't desire to have a home, doesn't matter how much I try to fight homelessness. They're not trying to go get a home. That's something to consider. Anyway, this sort of understanding comes in its fullness only through familiarity with and the use of the principle of the sixth sense. Having read the chapter, you must have observed that while reading it, you were lifted to a high level of mental stimulation. Splendid. Come back to this again a month from now. Read it once more and observe that your mind will soar to a still higher level of stimulation. Repeat this experience from time to time, giving no concern as to how much or how little you learn at the time. And eventually, you will find yourself in possession of a power that will enable you to throw off discouragement, master fear, overcome procrastination, and draw freely upon your imagination. Then you will have felt the touch of that unknown something which has been the moving spirit of every truly great thinker, leader, artist, musician, writer, statesman. Then you will be in position to transmute your desires into their physical or financial counterpart as easily as you may lie down and quit at the first sign of opposition. What I want to say now as we go back into our conversation, Andrew, is what he was doing here with the mind, and of course it's still valuable. Now people have translated that all over the planet into what they call artificial intelligence. Because of technology and computer and the evolution of getting to this place of where we are, being guided to this place of where we are as a planet, we now all are in a level playing field for the most part. Do some people not have access to computers and any of this? Absolutely. But across the board, millions, hundreds of millions, billions have access now to every bit of what we can access right here. ChatGPT, Gamma app, this, that, Google, whatever. And that's going to just continue to spread out. It seems there's an intention for people to create that all over the place. What the devil creates for evil, God created it for good. There's no way to get away from the fact that why I can talk about a universal government of peace where we all live in peace together so easily and clearly, which was mapped out, by the way, and talked about within a program here by this man who met a man, Master Farah Muhammad. But the reason I can talk about it and knowing that he talked about UFOs, that now everybody understands, oh wow, there's a realness to that. They're not unidentified. They are very identified, and all over the planet. There's an intelligence that I'm here to. I understand we're in this game of life as these beings way more than just so-called Negroes that somebody else tried to call us that. God never called us that. Some other folks that are fading away called us that. But the reality is we come from that original. That original that's still out there producing and flying around and doing all kind of stuff and We're tapping in now to that again, but we've weeded out the worst part of ourselves as original ones. And now we've studied that and we looked at it for the last 6 years, and now that's wrapping up. So now we can say never again. Now we can say, oh, we're not going backwards, we're moving forward. Best practices. That's why it's awesome intelligence. Best practices. That's all we care about. If I know the best practice on how to grow watermelons or fruits or whatever, cotton, why would I go back to the worst practices? Well, how they used to do it. That's just silly. Nobody's doing that. The youngsters today, what works? That's all I want to know. Yeah, we can. I'm glad it's documented of what didn't work, why it didn't work, what the snares were, what the traps were. That's good to have out there in the atmosphere too. But the best practices incorporate all of that in and just say this is what does work in spite of all of that. Maybe because of all that, I don't know. But these best practices work. That's where we focus in awesome intelligence. And it's way bigger than figuring out how to make another $5,000 a month, which is fine, which is necessary, which is good, which is a great thing. But what we're talking about is just bringing everybody to a place where these minds now are running the show. They're creating other systems that create other systems that are creating things. And they can always track back to, oh, I remember when I created that. I put that in motion. That one put it in motion. This one added to it. This one added to it. But you all of us have to know that we have our own agency. And that, to me, what's going on. And you can go into agreement with all these other agencies and all these other contracts and all these other, or you can also say, you know what, I'm not going to go into agreement with that. I'm good. I see what's going on. And okay, yeah, but that's not going to be good if you don't do this and you don't do it. Yeah, that's okay, but I don't want to do it. Or you can say, yeah, okay, cool, I get it. And so it's an exciting time. Awesome intelligence. What you make it. And we have the ability with LEV AI, as I'm passing the mic to you, Andrew, and we have the ability with LEV AI to help folks get in this space, and while they're learning, get paid off of the fact that everybody else is in the space learning and bringing other folks so they can learn, so they can get paid. And they can learn as they go, learn very specific things, like where to channel money to what account, Cash App, or this, that, or Zelle, and learn how to do certain things and put funnels in place and create all that good stuff. But also be for those that are very excited about helping others enter that space, there's also money to be made for just the fact that you've come in and there's an algorithm, a system that says we'll pay you when others come in to be students to learn how others can come in to be students to learn. Passing it to you, bro.
Oh, that's perfect timing. And I do want to share my screen once again. Excuse the noise if you can hear. I'm out near LAX.
All
But
good.
this is the on-ramp to LEV AI, which is Andrew and Reamus and the Awesome Intelligence team. So for those of you who can see the screen, I'm assuming these are still working, Reamus, where people can actually log up and sign in and get ready. And so that would be, for myself, you can see there, get LEV AI, and for Reamus.
Let
But
me
as he said,
let me give the clarity on that point and then let you build
okay,
where you're going. I
okay,
had a young lady that she signed in after we launched and all of that, and she was going in there still. I thought she understood that we were live and launched and you get to pay the money. So she got in, filled everything in, and it got to that point where they asked for the money, $49 or the $99. First one that I know that's done this. This has just happened like not even 12 hours ago. And so we were talking, and I asked her, I said, I didn't get a welcome email. And I'm wondering, you know, did you get an email? And she didn't respond right away because she's over there in Africa where she lives right now. But to a different time frame. So eventually she came back. But in the meanwhile, I went to my back office and I saw that she was in there, Andrew. She's in there as a personally enrolled person, hasn't paid a penny. So to kind of address where you were just saying about hopefully those people go to those links and it's still, I know you had some concerns as well. We'll deal with that about your personal link. But I don't know if that was tied. I don't know what it was tied to, but I do know it has everything to do with probably the brand new launch. And I knew that once you launch a thing, now it's no longer theory and who's paid, who hasn't, who did this, who did that. I don't know, but that's why I'm excited to attend this meeting. And I'm gonna let Michael know because he's connected to Randy, and Randy's gonna have a meeting. Now is where the network marketers understand. Now explaining how everything is unfolding for this person and that person. They have PayPal, they don't have PayPal, whatever. The card didn't work, and you know, using the same card over and over again, they frowned upon that. They said, listen, don't sign up everybody and your mama under the same credit card. Which in theory you kind of could, but it kind of lends itself to like, what kind of game is going on here? Get everybody to use their own card. This was some instruction we got last night, and I understand where it came from as the whole rest of the world is watching us. Naysayers, other people, haters, whatever, whatever. There's an idea that, oh, you just used a card and signed up 5,000 people at $100 each, and you just, so do your best to keep the integrity and the ethics, and the idea is get a person a debit card, get their own card, they have their own account, get them, you know, it's not that much to ask. It's not that much more of a difficulty of, because credit cards can sign up people right now. Debit cards can sign people up right now in the United States and Canada. And pretty soon it looks like they may be able to sign up if you got Bitcoin. But that's not here yet. But they're positioning themselves as we continue to evolve with right down to the modern time. So hopefully that helped just the clarity for everybody, Andrew, and then without interrupting your thought, let you get back to what you're saying. But I have people that have signed, one person signed up, even though you can't pay now. If you don't, I have experience where you're still on my team and you're on the tree and I can place you play. And for now, you know, you're on the team, which is good, and you haven't even paid a penny yet. Back to you, bro.
Well, actually, I need to wrap it up because I need to move on from here. But I do want to invite people to come by again tomorrow at 11. But Remus, you said there are other events here for those people that are that are already in the AI ecosystem. So we'll be connected with them later today. Is that correct?
That's correct. We've got 1 o'clock. For those that are in the ecosystem, if they see this in time, check in your back office, whatever. Hopefully, you can find on the Telegram group what time that meeting. I can't even tell you where it is right now. Maybe it's on the same line where we do our 9 a.m. meetings and our 6 p.m. meetings. It may be on that same line, but I just don't know that for sure. But it'll be at 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, which is about an
Okay.
hour.
All right, brother. I'm going to call it a wrap. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate you.
All right. Have a wonderful day.
Okay, you too.